Evening of the third day. Set and arithmetic.
Part 3.
I'm interested in an incident that took place here in the past.
But I didn't get the chance to learn anything more. What do you mean, incident? I was about to ask, but nearly bit down on my tongue. Hard. Thus, I was unable to get the words out. But, even if I miraculously had somehow, it never would have reached Kunigisa's ears, nor anyone else's ears, including my own. It would have been drowned out by the other noise. The shaking. What? I soon realized it was an earthquake. Gah!
Huh? Everyone, please stay calm,
urged Hikari, whose profession demanded that she remain cool, no matter what happened. But I hardly took her advice to heart. Maki, who looked as if she had been expecting the earthquake all along, reclined on the couch without a hint of worry. I tried to recall what I had learned about earthquakes back in my first year of junior high school, when I was still in Japan. Supposedly, they would start with small tremors, and then get bigger and bigger. I couldn't quite recall which were S waves and which were P waves, or figure out which were horizontal and which were vertical tremors. But that didn't matter. At any rate, the strength of the shaking had jumped a few levels. In a panic, I shoved Kunigisa, whose expression said, "I have no idea what's going on," onto the sofa and threw myself on top of her. There was a chandelier right above her. If that were to fall, she wouldn't stand a chance of survival with that tiny stature of hers. That was my thinking at the time, anyway. But my efforts seemed to have been in vain, because not a moment later, the shaking died down. Of course, when I say, not a moment later, I mean in terms of real time. To me, it felt only slightly less dragging and terrible than 5 minutes with your hand on a stove. In reality, the shaking had probably lasted for less than 10 seconds. "Is it over?" I asked, still on top of Kunigisa.
Yeah,
Maki answered. It was the word of a prophet, and probably trustworthy. Meanwhile, Kunigisa groaned with her face buried in the sofa, so I got off of her for the time being. An earthquake? It was pretty big, too. I wonder what it rated on the scale, Shinya said, looking around the room. The glasses and bottles on the table had fallen, and Hikari had reflexively begun to clean. "Pardon me, Hikari. I'm going to borrow the phone. I'm worried about Kanami." Shinya pointed to the house phone. Hikari nodded. He headed to the white phone by the cabinet. "Hikari, do you have a radio or something?" I asked. "I want to check the earthquake level." "Oh, Tomo, could you look it up on the internet?"
Well, there's probably already been a breaking news bulletin. We're technically in Kyoto Prefecture right now, aren't we? Or maybe not? It was a level 3 or 4. I can't quite pinpoint the epicenter, but it's probably around Maizuru, where the level would be at 5.
Maki said, quite matter-of-factly.
And it seems like there weren't many injuries, even in urban areas.
How do you know? Perhaps it was inelegant of me to pose such a question, but it just felt like the natural thing to say. She let out a big sigh before answering.
It's like I've been telling you, I just know. You may be smart, but you sure are slow. Don't have much of a memory either, it would seem. Hey, wait, doesn't that make you stupid? Anyway, to use an expression, I can see these things clear as day. Ibuki and the others are all fine.
Remote viewing and clairaudience, was it? Distance wasn't a factor for her. She could glance at a TV somewhere far across the sea and predict what would appear there next. Compound ESP. But even if she had just been making all of this up, there was no way to check. She hadn't said anything that couldn't be waved off with some explanation. It was probably true, however, that the mansion hadn't suffered much damage. Good to know. Shinya returned from the phone. "Kanami's fine," he said. "She says that she's in the atelier. Some paint cans fell off the shelf. It sounded like a big hassle, but at least she's not hurt." Should you go over there? He was her caretaker, after all, and even if he hadn't been, he must have been worried about her, seeing as she couldn't walk. But he spread his arms and said, "Nah, no need. She would probably get ticked off if I did." "Why do you say that?" "Because she told me not to come," he replied, with a pained expression of humility. "She says she's working right now. In fact, she's working on your portrait. Sounds like she's going to turn it into a real masterpiece, so I'd better not bother her."
Even with Ibuki's talent, there's no hope if she used such a terrible model.
"You really hate me, don't you?"
Yup.
Maki nodded, with a straight face. "Jeez. Well, whatever. That's how life had always gone for me anyway." I looked over at Hikari. "Does this happen here a lot? Earthquakes, I mean."
Not a lot, really. Shinya, you've been through a few, right?
"Yes, but this one was unusually big."
I wonder if any furniture fell over. I'm a little worried.
"If you're going to fix things, I'll help."
No, it wouldn't be right. We'll deal with it tomorrow under Rei's guidance.
Hikari flashed a sweet smile. If she were a mother, her kids would grow up proper for sure. If we hadn't met in this kind of place, under these kinds of circumstances, I definitely would have fallen for her. Or at least, I thought I would. It was never going to happen, but I thought so.
That was my first earthquake in a while.
Kunagisa mumbled, scratching her blue hair and finally getting up from the sofa.
I wonder if my computers are all right. They should be. If the epicenter was in Maizuru, the condo should be okay too. Boy, this takes me back to the great Hanshin quake. Say, Ichan, you were already in Houston in those days, right?
Yep. I think I was. I vaguely remembered seeing something about it on the news back in my tiny room in America.
That was a really tough time for me. I was still in Kobe back then. Most of my computers crashing for real. I was so startled.
Was startled really the most appropriate word to describe living through that disaster? So, shouldn't you be worried about your computers? You must be fully crammed with cheese by now. Let's go back to your room already.
Bye, Hikari.
It seemed like the time was right, so I decided to leave the living room. I didn't trust that I had the self-control to stay cool if I had to talk to Maki anymore. It seemed like a good time to split. As if reading my every thought, Maki's gaze burned a hole through my back, and it took every ounce of willpower in my body to ignore her. I pulled Kunagisa by the arm and took her back to her room. The 3 PCs, 2 PCs and 1 workstation, in her room remained securely situated in the computer rack, and the room had suffered no damage. Kunagisa let out a big yawn, and stretched.
I'm turning in for today. Having a full stomach really makes you sleepy, huh? E-chan, undo my hair.
Do it yourself, will you?
Come on, it's hard to undo a ponytail by myself. I'm not flexible. It's not that I can't do it, but I'll start aching. I've broken bones that way, you know.
I get it. You're really adorable, you know that? I removed the band from her hair and ran a comb through it. Tomo Kunigisa let out a naughty little giggle. Once I was finished, she dove into the bed. She sunk herself into the white mattress and rolled around joyously. Take off that coat. How many times do I have to tell you? And aren't you hot?
This coat has special memories attached, so no dice.
Memories. Huh. What were they? Even our dear ESP-endowed fortune-teller, Maki Himina, couldn't read Kunigisa's mind or past. Maybe they had something to do with the team.
Anyway, E-chan, Kanami and Akane are pretty terrible, but you and Maki don't seem to be on the best of terms either.
Well, it's more like she harasses me for no reason, I said, thinking about how similar this was to what Kanami had said. I don't have any problems with her in particular.
Yeah, I'll bet. You're not aggressive enough to hate or resent people. At the very worst, you get annoyed. Isn't that right?
You think? That's interesting.
Just joking.
And held her grin.
But E-chan, you've really never fallen in love with someone before, have you?
Nope.
I love that about you.
Strange. She was being weirdly feisty. I wonder if maybe that ginger ale had really been wine. I'd never seen her drunk before, so I couldn't imagine what she would be like. By the way, Tomo.
What is it?
Do you believe in superpowers?
If they existed, I wouldn't mind at all.
She said, grinning.
I don't really want any, but you can always dream. It's better for Santa Claus to exist than for him not to, right? It's just like that.
You're so laid back. She wouldn't mind. Indeed. That was surprisingly insightful. Whether or not they existed, it wouldn't have much of an effect on my daily life. Now was a bit of an exception. Because we were on this island? Because we were on this island. I'm gonna go back to my room and turn in too. See you tomorrow. If you're planning to sleep now, I'll come wake you up tomorrow. So let's have breakfast together.
Hey, E-chan.
Kunigisa, still lying face up on her bed, called to me.
Let's fool around.
She beckoned to me. I paused, just for a second. No, I said.
Good for nothing, coward, chicken pot pie.
Yeah, I said, and shut the door, went downstairs, and headed to the storeroom where I was staying. It would have been truly awful to run into Maki in the hallway or something, but luckily no such thing occurred. Perhaps she was still busy chatting it up with Shinya. When I got to my room, I realized that it had a lock. Maybe it shouldn't have been a surprise, seeing as it was supposed to be a storage room, but I couldn't help wondering about being trapped inside if someone were to lock it while I was asleep. There was no way I could reach the window even if I stood on the chair, so it really would be like a prison cell. Then again, there was nothing anyone could gain by locking me up, so it was probably just excessive worry. I entered, curled up on my futon, and stared at the ceiling and thought. I was, of course, thinking about what Maki had said earlier.
Oh my, this part is fairly warped. You stay by her side because you're jealous of her. And while you're jealous of her ability to express herself freely, she somehow looks unhappy, regardless of whether or not she really is. You see this girl who has everything you want and can do all the things you can't do, yet she is still, for some reason, unhappy, and that makes you feel better. That makes you feel like it doesn't matter if you can't get what you want.
Damn it. She's exactly right. Akane of the Seven Fools had described Kunigisa and I as a codependent pair. But really, Maki's opinion was closer to the truth. To me, Tomo Kunigisa represented the thing I most wanted to be. No, that wasn't it. That wasn't it. To me, she was then. Then what? The reason I chose a university in Kyoto rather than Kobe was because she had moved to Kyoto. I also couldn't deny that she was one of the reasons I left Houston. Why had I done all that? As Kunigisa had said, I wasn't aggressive enough to have feelings like love or hate. Even if someone were to bother me, it was a feeling no different from being annoyed when it rains. No matter how much disdain Maki had for me, no matter how many malicious comments Kanami spat at me, no emotion welled up in me about it. I couldn't help but wonder, was I even human? I didn't understand other people's feelings at all, if they really existed. If superpowers like the one Maki claimed to use really existed, perhaps I wanted some myself. Nah, I reconsidered. If I could understand people's feelings, life would just be that much more annoying. I wasn't looking for a life with an open Pandora's box. I didn't have the nerve for it. Such nonsense. I hated trips. I just end up thinking too much. Well, I don't know about too much, but the kind of dangerous thoughts that can wreck you. 4 more days. I could be patient. I didn't hate being patient. Or at least, I was used to it. Suffering and pain. I was damn well used to it. Still, it doesn't feel great. Damn. I want to return to my tranquil quotidian life across the sea, I thought as I fell into the night. But the following morning, I would realize something. The previous 3 days had been plenty tranquil and quotidian.